Good afternoon. Welcome to another Kerfuffle showcase. Delighted to have Steve from InventoryBase on with us today. Steve, how are you? You well?
Very good, Simon. Thank you. And you?
Yeah, good, good. You were obviously having a pop at a chippy northerner earlier by showing off that the weather's fantastic
No,
down
I
by
felt
you.
more than complimentary of how nice you guys up there up in Manchester.
Right, so somebody has to live beyond the walls, getting all Game of Thrones. But anyway,
I just apologise. I'm right on the south coast, the south and north.
sickening. Anyway, it's all right. I get seasick just looking at a bathtub. So
At least we've got the sun more down here.
So, Steve, let's start with you. What's your background in the business? How did you get into property? And before you came to InventoryBase?
That's an interesting question. Actually, I'm not. I don't have any background at all in the property industry. Funnily enough,
Great. That's all
right. So yeah, that actually, both helped and hurt the growth of the business. But I cut my teeth in programming and software.
Okay.
So don't let this fine exterior fool you. I'm very much a geek at heart. And so from the age of 12 years old, I was programming for various internet-related applications. I was really passionate about software. And fast forward to university, where we went into a computer science degree, and there I met my business partner, who we run the company today. So it can happen. You can find your career in university and find your business partner for life as well, which we did. We were fortunate enough to do that. And we started out really building, let's say, applications, websites, e-commerce, various things for various companies. And throughout that journey of being an agency, if you will, we came across a very niche industry, which was the sort of up and coming inventory provider industry. So I think around that time, we just had the deposit law changes where your deposit would have to go into a third party custodial scheme, and obviously be backed up with that with evidence in the form of a written report. So the burden of proof sort of moved onto the landlord's shoulders, and if they wanted to deduct any monies out of cleaning, damages, etc., that were created during the tenancy term, they would have to prove that in writing, essentially, to fairly deduct from the tenant's deposit and obviously showcase why. I remember being a tenant just before that these software came out, and really still, obviously, the market was slow in the uptake of custodial schemes, but it was very much a kind of running joke that you'd lose 200 quid out your deposit straight away just for the landlord putting their hand in the pocket and saying, I'm buying cleaning materials and whatnot. Even if you did a professional clean, it didn't matter. Their opinion of professional clean was somewhat different. So it protects all parties involved when you have an inventory report done, obviously, and you're producing these reports for the adjudicator. So what happened back at that time is the industry of the outsourced inventory provider started to pick up, and there was a lot more demand for that service because the letting agents who suddenly had to create all these long-winded, detailed professional reports didn't really have the time throughout their property management sort of day to do it. So enter in the outsourced inventory provider, and that industry grew pretty rapidly. And we were right there on the cusp of that to sort of provide them with the tools and the platform to not only produce those reports at scale in a far shorter amount of time with far less repetition and administration overhead, but sort of run their business as well in sort of an end-to-end management dashboard of scheduling and client communication and whatnot. So it was an interesting time to get into this market. And as Radwed, which is the company behind InventoryBase, we wanted really something to evolve into becoming a product company, because we were into software, obviously, and we were creating lots of great applications for various different companies around the world. And it became like a repeating joke that we would make millions of pounds for other people and provide them with great technology. And we gained the confidence by seeing what we did for other people and what they did with their business. We gained the confidence to sort of start our own, if you will, and transition to a pure software house. And software as a service was the up and coming sort of opportunity there.
So I'm fascinated though. Two lads at university just kind of fall upon inventories. What was it specifically that really caught your eye? That was a niche that you wanted to focus on. Was there a particular, was there a particular incident experience?
Yeah, so it was actually someone on the board of the AIIC, the Association of Independent Inventory Providers at the time.
Yeah.
They were obviously their business was starting to flourish a little bit around that time. They were picking up a lot of work, and they needed a document management system. That was the basics of it. It just needed something so that the clients could log in and book with them, because they didn't want to be, obviously when you're out on the job, you can't pick up the phone as well. So, it was automating that end-to-end process of scheduling, taking bookings online into a calendar that you can fulfill that. And so without the back and forth emails trying to find a reasonable time. So it solved the problem back then of just managing bookings and facilitating bookings. And then obviously around the same time, interestingly enough, was the launch of the App Store by Apple. And we saw a couple of entries in the market for apps that created reports, and we thought we could do a better job. But not only that, we could combine it with the online platform solution so that you had, and we were the first in the market to really do this, is to have a sort of web dashboard that you could do everything on in terms of editing reports, just like you would in Microsoft Word, or managing your day-to-day, as well as using an app out in the field that didn't require an internet connection and could get very click happy with and just get through and power through and create a report with embedded photography and photos and things like that.
Cool. And so I was just about to ask you, obviously, what are the different services and product lines that InventoryBase do? But as is always the case, Zoe got to it first. So big fan of yours by the looks of it here. Hi, Zoe. Great company, not just inventories though. HHSRS RA, Legionella RA. The list is long and glorious. Self-visits, what a masterstroke. You are going to have to explain all this, by the way.
More than absolutely, yeah. Very surprising, actually. I haven't seen it.
Training Academy and CPD, user-friendly and fabulous support. Very happy. Well, you can't get a better start than that, can you? So
thank you, Zoe, very much.
We have. Great. Thank you again, Zoe. Give us a bit of context about starting with I suppose, what you're best known for. What are the biggest product lines, and then we'll work down from there.
Sure, yeah. So, the headline at its core is that InventoryBase is a platform for property reporting. Now, like I said, we started off very much in a niche industry, and that's how we found our way into the property market. Is we worked with an inventory provider who, again, it wasn't lots of different reports. It was just very solely focused on inventories, check-ins, check-outs, and maybe some interim inspections. And we solved that problem very well. I mean, we cut the time immediately. We cut the time to produce a very professional, detailed property report in half. And so, people used to go out and either take notes on a pen and paper, or they used to sing into one of those talk boys, if you remember Home Alone 2. Or they would obviously take lots of photos and go back and then try and type everything up from memory and then from those photos. And so we wanted to provide a platform that didn't change how they worked, but made them a little bit more efficient at the time of working. So we've got an online dashboard, obviously, that does the scheduling, the management, the production, the polishing, and all sorts of customization and features to produce and scale property reporting. But also then the app, whether you're into typing on an app, obviously, if you can text really quickly, then it's great for you. But if you think Google kind of knows what you're saying as you're typing. So we wanted to provide something like that, not really something that would require lots of drop downs or lots of repetition or clicking a lot of clicks. We wanted to do something that would be more natural. So we built a sort of dictionary auto text enabled text input that would suggest to you as you're typing, whether it was you're typing fair and suggesting fair wear and tear, or whether you were just typing shortcuts like the first letter of each word, FWT, for example. Yeah. So naturally you could get very quick with typing just by typing acronyms and shortcuts, as people used to work anyway. But obviously back then they would leave the acronyms in their report and they would be subject to interpretation and have to have a glossary that go with it and things like that. Our app, swaps out when you type FWT, it swaps out for fair wear and tear. So it's, it gets very detailed there. Some people like speech to text, where they can just talk into it and it's typing out for them. And interestingly, I had people that in front of a large audience try to break it by doing a very, very bad Scottish accent, and it nailed it 100%. So I won't take credit for that. Obviously, that's a great team at Apple and Android that have provided that functionality, but it works. And then we found that people, you know, as you get better and better at reporting and you want to zip around properties faster, you need a faster method, and there is no faster method than dictation. No. So we recognize that in the industry. We're still very much clued up on dictation. And what they would do is they would go out with an audio file, they'd go out the camera, they take all their photos on their SLR or whatnot, and they'd, like I said, have one of those talk boys to run around, those dictation devices to run around and sort of speak into. And then they would send that audio file, and they would upload their photos, if you will, or provide their photos and send the audio file. And someone, usually, if it's an outsourced provider, would type those files up while they can then move on to the next property. So we realized that was a really great way of getting detailed reports, you know, finished and completed faster at scale. Some people would come home and spend their whole night typing them up, which might take 3 to 5 hours typing up, you know, a half an hour audio. So we wanted to take that overhead away from them so they could just move on, free up their time to manage, to get more jobs done, to cover more ground. So we provided an outsourced pool of typists essentially around the world, minimum 2 years experience typing inventory reports for the industry. So that now via the app, you can record all your files and you can take all your photos, and then you can just hit a button and it goes off to a pool of typists to get typed up for you. That obviously had the benefit I described in terms of the inventory providers having less work on their hands and have to type it up themselves, and able to scale by getting around. But also the photos element was a massive time savings. If you imagine, I don't know if you've ever been the subject of the victim of having to use Microsoft Word and trying to embed lots of high quality photos into it. You know, some of our clients take 1,500 photos. I mean, that's a bit ridiculous, but you know, anywhere from 300 to 1,500 photos on a detailed report.
Yeah,
and, it's very, very tedious. And I remember sitting around the table with a rather large client in London of ours, and they were looking at scaling up their use of the software, and they said the boss turned around to one of the colleagues and said, "Well, how long are you spending per day? You know, coming back from going around and doing your inspections to how long, you know, putting those on the computer, getting them into a report, and getting their report out." And they said, "Well, 4 or 5 hours a day." And the other colleague, 4 or 5 hours a day is, you know, 8 to 10 hours a day of people compiling these reports. And they'd been trialing the software for a while. And they said, "How long has it spent taking you now?" They said, "1.5 hours to 2 hours." It worked out on the spot that was a 70 grand a year saving, you know, for them, for those two staff. And obviously they were looking at scaling this across.
Steve, are you able to? I mean, these are incredible figures, and of course, they all seems fairly obvious. But are you able to actually sit down with a prospective client when they come to you and work through these ROI kind of savings and everything else, or do they just come to you and say it's clear we're going to be saving enough time to do it? But I just wondered, are you able to quantify those ROIs ever around the client base?
Yeah, I mean, we typically say that, you know, a report can take 2 or 3 hours to do with all the photos and the compiling and obviously typing up into Microsoft Word. And as you know, Microsoft Word doesn't scale easily when the document starts to get a bit long. So it generally, the truth is, most people just realize how effective the savings is in terms of time. We do, obviously, I do go through several iterations of figures depending on where your focus is, on what you want to do. It may just be that you're looking at scaling. It may just be that now suddenly your inspections need to be more regular. It may just be that, you know, since the tenant fee ban, for example, we've seen a renewed focus on quality and detail of inventory reports because the landlord is suddenly realizing that it's something that they're now paying for. Service provided by their agent, their provider, and they want to make sure that it's worth the money for them that they're spending, and they will cover them in the event of a dispute. And obviously that's what it's about. It's about reducing disputes. It's about safeguarding the tenants. It's about due diligence and compliance. And you know, the features around the software, the ancillary features, if you will, things like detailed audit trails, you know, documented against every inspection, every property on your system, every user, every client. So we maintain a full audit historical log, if you will, it's time stamped of everything that's happened. You know, when a report was started, where it was started, when a photo was taken. Obviously, we geostamp and timestamp all the photography, so it all goes towards producing the evidence that essentially is a log. You know, it can't be disputed, and timestamping obviously when reports are complete, when signatures are attained, and where, and so that you have, in addition to then when you share the report, you have the tenants who then open the report, and we track opens. We track that reports have actually been received, and when have they actually been opened and read, and if there were any comments or any issues with that report, they're all documented and they're all trailed. So it doesn't matter if it's even 10 years from now and there's suddenly an issue, going back, you'll have all of that information ready, available on a click, for every property over multiple tenancies.
And you, has there ever been any research done in terms of how much it reduces disputes using systems like yours? Are you aware?
So it was an interesting one, because actually Scotland implemented the law, I think, a little bit later on, and they were at something like 16% disputes.
Yeah.
And then after implementing, sort of, actually getting inventories, done as a more proper part of the process, it reduced to around 2%. So the process there obviously reduced made the whole thing reduce from 16% to 2%. Software obviously around that is going to provide the same, or if not even more benefit in terms of all the audit trails and everything like that. So it's very difficult to keep on top of everything else when you're doing your job, and even something as little as communicating effectively to all of the parties involved. That's something that the software automates for you. So it's not only the time savings and obviously completing the reports and doing the actual on-site work, but it's all the time savings of administration and overhead and communication as well. That's all built into the software, and it naturally works and flows. And I think that's what, we saw Zoe's review there. That's what really we should shout more about, is everything else that we do for you, just like the transcription service and various other services that I'll get into as we go as well. That's part of the software and a part of the support, the professional support that we provide, and we've been recognized for that.
So let's talk about actually how it has changed over the years. How has InventoryBase grown and evolved then from the early?
Yes,
2012.
That's right. So we launched in 2012. That was we started developing in 2011. We launched in 2012, and that was, like I said, with a handful of customers who were the outsourced inventory providers. Because how we set it up is obviously inventory providers, clients being both landlords and letting agents, more predominantly letting agents, would be able to log into the software, and they'd obviously be on the receiving end of all the communications and the web reports and everything like that. So we actually gained popularity with property managers, both residential and commercial, pretty quickly, just through our customers, just through almost word of mouth, if you will. And so we wanted to evolve to meet the requirements of not only the professional inventory side of the market, but also the inspection side of the market. And what we learned quickly is the inspection side of the market is not standardized. It's very, from one person's inspection report to the next, there's not going to be many similarities. Some observations and some photos is probably as close as it gets. So we knew we had to evolve to provide a software that would provide the tools to customize, to tailor what you wanted within your templates, for example, so that when you gave a job to one of your property managers, it would be something that would be straightforward. They click into it and it's all there to fill in the blanks. It's all there to work through room by room, item by item.
Thanks, Steve, for joining us today, and keep in touch with us.
Thanks, Simon. Great to speak to you. And thank you, everyone. Take care.